Aha.
Hi. Oh my goodness, there you are. Oh, yay.
It
So
got a
Dan,
little noisy in here.
did it? Okay, is
Yeah,
it?
it got a little noisy, but
Okay.
kind of stuck here in the city. It's hard to find good connections, so
I'm going to take what I can get.
I think so. Yeah.
And also, just so you know, you're my very first Zoom meeting and Zoom interview.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Cool.
Yay. Thank you so much for joining me. Just a quickie, I want to introduce you officially. I'm here today with the Breath Zone with Dan Brulé, who is the guru of breathwork. I know you're sick of hearing that, but it's true. And the founder of Breath Mastery, the author of Just Breathe, Tony Robbins' personal breath coach. And you've been doing breath work all over the country, the world for 40 years plus probably, right?
Yeah, as long as I can remember now.
Yeah, inspiring to, as you say, have people wake up to themselves with the breath. And I love that. So welcome, Dan. So happy to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yay. So, I know this question probably has gotten old over 40 years, but I want to, in your point of view, from your lips, I want to hear it. I've heard it 1,000 times on interviews I've watched of you. I've also heard you so eloquently share how you kind of landed in breath work as a youth. I remember the story in the workshop recently in Bel Air where you said you were 5 and I think you were in your Catholic school. And then you shared another wonderful story, which I love for you to share, about the Whaling Library, the library where the book popped open and it landed on this page. I don't know. Go ahead and expand on that. Share from your point of view.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a child, I was turned on to the breath by the Monsignor Berraby, the pastor of our Catholic church. In kindergarten, he used to, every Friday, the priest would visit all of the classes. And I remember the first time he came, the nuns sat down with all of us kids, and it was like a paradigm shift, because till then, we looked up to these nuns like they were gods. And then suddenly she was sitting in our midst like a little child when the priest came in the room. So, I don't know, just heightened my attention. I was mesmerized. He had a robe, a red robe, and gold trimmed Bible, and just kind of awesome to a 4-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And talked about the book of Genesis and breathing into the nostrils of man the breath of life. And wow, I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited about that.
That's the way I feel.
Just turned me on, like, my God, God is breathing into us. What? And so I was kind of hooked. Something magical about the breath, like early on, and a child's imagination, and it kind of never left me, I guess. And then I had near drowning experiences growing up 3-4 times. And once I was in the military, I was actually resuscitated. And so it was like the breath, life kept sticking my nose in the breath. And if I wasn't paying attention, I got the wind knocked out of me. And all of my jobs were in the military. I was a diver. We were practicing breath holding, hyperventilation on oxygen. We were doing deep breath hold dives, free diving, before it was called free diving. And then I resuscitated someone. I went to X-ray school out of high school, and I learned CPR.
Yeah.
And within 2 weeks or so of when I took that course, I was called up to intensive care unit to take a portable chest X-ray. And when I got up there, while I was in the room, the guy basically coded on me. And so, your training kicks in, and I pumped him a little bit. I breathed into him, and he woke up. My God, let this happen every day of my life,
I feel you.
So, again, it was like, wow, the magic, the miracle of breath. And when you love what you do, the universe keeps giving you lots of opportunities to do it.
Amen.
I'd be at the beach and someone would drown. I'm at a restaurant, someone chokes on food. I'm on an airplane, they have a heart attack. It was like, wow, people were like dropping like flies around me so I could resuscitate them. I was so happy when I discovered rebirthing after I got out of the military, and I discovered rebirthing because up till then I was coming upon people who were dead, breathing with them and trying to make them alive. And now I could come upon people who are alive, breathe with them and make them more alive. So, a couple of steps up the ladder, a little more fun, and maybe in the big scheme of things, more important. I've been a missionary for the breath my whole life. It's a passion, it's a profession, it's an obsession, and I don't know what else to do.
I love, you also said something really funny in the workshop. You said, I just happen to be lazy, and so this was an easy way to make a living.
I think the master, I have an old friend from high school, even before, big Harley motorcycle guy, builds motorcycles, classic. He goes, I got a Brule, and he teaches people to breathe. He said, they're lazy bastard. If anybody was ever going to grow up and find a way to get paid for breathing, it would be that lazy bastard Dan Brulé who actually manages to breathe for a living. So,
right?
It's meant to be, I'm really fortunate that I don't have any doubt about why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I'm not doing it, I'm exhausted, I'm depressed. And when I'm doing it, I have endless energy. And
same.
Just know when you're walking the path,
Yeah, gosh, I agree with that so much. As someone new to breathwork, only 3 years in to my journey with it, I have to say, and I've lived a lot of life already, but I have to say that I don't know. I think these are the best years of my life, and I just see it getting better and better and brighter and bigger and fuller. And I just can't even.
For many people, it's kind of like that. You had already been. You're already very successful, fitness and yoga and so on.
Yeah.
So for many people, the breathing is that little piece that when they add it into everything they've already achieved, it just takes everything to the next level. So for some people, it's that one thing that brings everything together. And for other people, it's a spark that gets them onto their path.
Yes.
So you're a good example of that.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Yeah, I feel blessed. Every day I'm just grateful. Really, it's just.
Breath is a blessing. And if we can remember that and just spend a few times during the day, we just remember how blessed we are to be able to feel, to be able to breathe, to have a mind, to just.
Agreed.
And to generate those kind of positive emotions while you're breathing embodies the frequency of those emotions, and it becomes kind of our state of being rather than something we do. It just becomes breathing allows us to embody those qualities that we hold in consciousness, our aspirations, our grand desires, our mission, our purpose. Breathing gives us a chance to take that to every cell of our body and be living from our truth. It's such a direct
hit. It's a direct hit, right? So speaking of the way that breathwork really does that and allows you to I say just connect to the truth of who you are, right? That just the truth of you. And so what do you believe are what would you suggest are the best and quickest ways to get to that? There's so many different styles. Like you spoke about rebirthing. We know holotropic. We've heard of, Wim Hof, all of these styles. The style I teach, 3 parts conscious circular, which isn't exactly holotropic, a little different, slightly different. But so speak to those. And what do you think is your favorite? I will assume it's rebirthing, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, my favorites are, people ask where to start or if you could only do one breathing exercise or technique, what would it be? And for me, it's like, how can we breathe to become more conscious? So if we use breath as a way to develop mindfulness, present moment awareness, meditative awareness, then we use the breath to become more conscious. And so the more conscious I am of each breath, the more conscious I am in general. The more aware I am of my breathing, the more aware I am of my posture, my feelings, my attitudes, my emotions, my situation.
Yeah.
So breath awareness develops in us this capacity to be aware of many other things, on many other levels.
Right.
So the best breathing exercises are those that make us more conscious.
Agreed.
And equal to that would be the ability to induce relaxation with the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've ramped up our consciousness, our awareness, and we're deepening our relaxation. And the next and equal to that would be any breathing exercise that gives us a sense of energy, that causes tingling or vibrating or energy flows or streaming or light experiences. So using the breath to generate energy, access prana, chi, ki, spirit, life force, whatever you want to call it, using the breath to relax, and using the breath to become more conscious. So if we had one breathing pattern that would do all of that, that would be the one. And each of those that you mentioned, that's why they are effective. Just pick the Wim Hof method, for example. A lot of, he's so passionate about the breath and about positive psychology and gradual exposure to cold. But if you give a person a technique to practice, like, okay, breathe 30 breaths and then hold your breath for 1 minute, it gives it a structure. So now people have something to hang their mind on, something to hook. And so a 2-part breath or a 3-part breath, like you described, is another device for just making people more deliberate and more conscious of their breathing. So, and on one level, it doesn't matter how the person is breathing.
Agreed. As long as they're breathing.
And doing it consciously.
Consciously, correct,
in the game. So, and there are so many styles, and we need more of them. Because certain people resonate with us. Chemistry, we have a certain connection. We come from similar schools. And so there are so many people teaching breath work now, thank God. 40 years ago, I felt like a voice in the desert.
I can't even imagine.
Out from the rooftops, and people were breathing, schmeathing, meditation. They just weren't ready for it.
Well,
But
it's interesting. So interesting that you had the fortitude or resilience to just keep going in the face of people kind of poo-pooing it. And you were like,
stubbornness.
Yes, that. But I'm grateful because look at what we get to experience of you. So
just to refuse to focus on anything else. I just, and hey, if you focus on something for 40, 45 years, even you're bound to learn something.
That. And so to touch back on when you were speaking about the different styles. So I like to categorize, and correct me if you will, let me know if you agree with this, that the styles of breath were like, let's say, a breath pattern, like breath of fire or the 4-7-8 or the 4 box breathing, 4-4 and a 4, inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. Those are wonderful for what I feel to just connect people instantly to, like, giving them energy, to let them relax, to get them grounded when they're feeling stressed out. But then the other styles like Wim Hof, Holotropic, 3-part, rebirthing are more for cracking people open, quote unquote, and really having them go deep with some stuff they want to clear out. Would that be a fair way of describing?
Yeah, so you could call that category of breath work transformational breath work, psycho-spiritual breath work. And it's not basically diaphragmatic breathing. I would say diaphragmatic breathing is a stabilizing pattern. It's not going to induce transformation. So that 3-part breath that you mentioned, like the first part of the inhale in the belly, second part in the chest, and then the exhale. So that's good because breathing in the belly grounds the person. Breathing in the chest opens up their heart. So it's a really great pattern for staying connected in the body and also beginning to open up to emotions that are held in the chest, under the clavicles. And also, it's not an accident that the lungs are wrapped around the heart. So when we're breathing into the chest area, we're playing with our heart space. And we're starting to awaken all those qualities of the heart, love, and compassion, and patience and joy and gratitude.
Yep.
So it's, and I would add to that maybe a third level of breath, and then ascending breath up above. So if I breathe down into my belly,
Yes.
I'm sort of focusing on grounding myself to the earth, centering myself, grounding myself in my body, connecting to the earth.
Right.
When I breathe into my heart, it feels like I'm connecting to those around me and to life around me. And when I send the breath up higher into the upper spaces, then it feels like I'm sending breath up and cooling my brain, clearing my mind, connecting with higher energies, you could say. And so when we talk about the choice between, say, belly breathing or abdominal breathing and chest breathing, we can then further divide it into lower belly and lower abdomen and upper abdomen, lower chest and upper chest. And so when you start to tweak the breath and you get more sensitive, you can start to make some refinements that open up subtle capacities, untapped resources, healing energies. And so it's a great adventure because everybody has to find their own way in, you know. Every good breathing school or method is based on what I call the three convergences. And if you look at any breathing school or style of method, and there are certain fundamentals that they all share. And once we learn those fundamentals, then we're kind of free to create our own method, personalized.
So touch on those. So expand on that.
So one way of looking at it is the three convergences, and that is the converging of consciousness and breathing. That by itself is rare because people go through their day, they're breathing all the time, but maybe they're aware they're breathing 1% of the time. So as soon as you become aware of your breath as a ritual, as a practice, and you develop the ability to turn to your breath in certain moments, in certain events, then you're tapping some really cool capacities. So you'll see that in every school, the combination of consciousness and breathing. It's very basic, but it's one of the real pillars. So becoming conscious of how fast you breathe, how slow, whether you're breathing through your nose, your mouth, the subtle sensations, what moves when you breathe. Are you breathing high in your chest? Are you breathing low in your belly? Is it fast? Is it slow? Are there pauses? So bringing consciousness to all of this, we're already getting benefit. In one way I look at it, it's almost like a trick. Because if you focus on your breathing, you're not doing what you usually would do in that moment. And so something new is possible. So let's say something simple like stuck in traffic or someone's insulting me. And what do I usually do in those moments? If I replace those reactions with just observing my breath, I have interrupted a pattern. I've taken myself off of a certain path and new possibilities are open to me. I can stay calm. I can stay centered. So that's the first what I call convergence. And I don't know if it's possible if there are any breathing exercise or techniques out there that don't assume that, of course, you're going to bring consciousness to the breathing. That by itself is one of the points. And the second is the convergence of awareness or consciousness and tension. So that might be emotional tension, psychological tension, or actual physical tension. Joints, muscles, your jaw, your forehead, in your throat, chest, belly. So as we're breathing, we're scanning through the body and we're becoming more conscious of our tensions, more conscious of our relaxation. Because a lot of the power of the breath doesn't open up to us until we soften to it, until we open to it. It's like raining in the desert, hard-packed soil, the water washes along the surface. But if I turn the soil and loosen the soil, when it rains, it soaks it up. So if I soften and loosen my body while I'm breathing, I'm going to absorb that prana, the chi, the energy. The breath is going to penetrate those cracks and crevices, and it's going to do healing and detoxing and releasing. So that's the other part. This awareness of tension and the focus on relaxation. And you should see that in everybody. Some people take it for granted. They're just like Wim Hof, for example, when he first started teaching his method, he never even talked about relaxation. It was just something that he naturally did. So it didn't occur to him that it was something you need to teach. But later, as he started working with more people, he realized, oh, not everybody can just naturally relax. I guess we should focus on it, right? Yeah. And rebirthing is very similar. Leonard Orr, who developed rebirthing.
Yes.
I mean, I've known him for 40 years. And for the first 10 years or so I was with him, he never mentioned meditation once. Because he's naturally meditative. Right. It didn't occur to him that meditation was an important breath work. He just took it for granted because he's naturally meditative.
Yeah.
And so these are the little hidden kind of fundamentals that are in there. And the third thing is that you've got to breathe to produce changes in feelings, so you have something to track and observe. So the way I look at it, we use the breath. The breath wakes up energy. The energy wakes up feelings and sensations. And then we get a chance to see how we react to our own feelings and sensations and make better choices. So when I get
or not, hopefully we do. Hopefully we do.
So, and you assume that people who come to breathwork are interested in spiritual awakening, purification, detoxing, self-improvement, personal growth. We take that for granted, and so that's one of those things too. If my best understanding is that if we're ready, whatever book we read, whatever teacher we meet, whatever technique we practice, it's going to unlock. It's going to work because we're hungry, we're ready. So if we bring that readiness to breathing, just a simple breath is enough to make lots of things happen.
I
so
love it.
It's the attitude we bring to the breath. It's the consciousness we bring to the breath. And it should be sacred but not serious.
Right. I love that. Yeah.
And yet, challenging. So that attitude allows us to really tap a lot of the best benefits of breath work, I can say.
Right. I love that. Yeah, I mean, look, I know we can talk forever and ever and ever about all the different types, and we both are junkies and obsessed, clearly. Talk to me a little bit about, because one of the things I come across with the students I work with is everyone struggles to understand, even when you describe that we're not really hyperventilating, but we are, but we're not, no one can seem to grasp the distribution of O2 to CO2 and how that's really happening in our bodies and whether it's bad or good. And look, I always say, can't find one case of anyone stuck in tetany when I've searched, is there anyone stuck in it who's going to come back to my class with lobster claws? So far, no. But still people, sometimes get a little freaked out by that and question.
Well, people trigger the symptoms of hyperventilation in the process of learning, call it energy breathing. It's like bumping your head or scraping your knee when you learn how to walk or ride a bicycle, or you swallow water when you're learning how to swim. Now, these things don't have anything to do with swimming or walking. They just happen in the process of learning. It wouldn't, and it shouldn't stop you. If you fall and scrape your knee, it shouldn't say, "Oh, walking is bad," or
That's great. Yeah.
It happens. So hyperventilation isn't bad. It just happens in the process of learning to manage our energy. When we're awakening stuff inside of us, these things happen along the way. It's a great experience. And I don't know, hyperventilation has gotten kind of a bad rap. Some people don't even like to use the term. Like Wim, he doesn't like to say hyperventilation, but that's what they're doing. But we, like in the really powerful, transformational, cathartic kind of breathwork practices, I like to make people really focus on relaxing on every exhale. So you don't blow, you don't push. And that keeps us from disturbing the pH. It keeps us from over-breathing. It keeps us from blowing off too much CO2, which is, over-breathing is hyperventilation, the real definition. And over-breathing means we're blowing off too much CO2. And the more you huff and puff, the more you blow off CO2. But if you focus on the inhale and let the exhale be a reflex, your body will keep itself in balance. It might go off balance a little bit as you're learning, but you catch it, you do it. And if the symptoms of hyperventilation come, enjoy them. You know, just they're going to pass. They come by themselves. They go by themselves. And one of the things we realized early was, you know, people, if you stop breathing, hold your breath, the symptoms of hyperventilation will go away. But if you keep breathing, they also go away. So it's, how can it be the cause? So there's something, it's not just the breathing, it's what are we focusing on while we breathe? What are we resisting? What are we not feeling? And when you work on those things, the physiological imbalances don't happen. It's more than just the breathing. It's our attitude. It's how much effort we're using. It's we're controlling or resisting or fighting. That magnifies all those symptoms. So if we do the inner work, be a witness, be accepting of everything that happens inside of us, the system will do its own.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it's like our body knows how to heal itself. And just as the Maharishi, the TM guy, used to say, the mind left to itself will move towards bliss by itself. And so if we practice being the witness and we get out of our head and just experience during the session, the mind will come into a central, peaceful state. The body will release and relax. And every single session will be healing and transformative. So
you said something I loved in the workshop too. You said, you know, get good at hyperventilating, get good at it. And it's something I say too, like about like discomfort exists in life. Like every day there's discomfort. And yet here's what I always say is like, life is uncomfortable, point A to point B. Like you're sitting in traffic, you're going to a job you don't even love anymore, and the payoff at point B isn't great. But in breath work, if you sit through the discomfort and work through it, the payoff is usually awesome. So go for it. And that's, you know, I mean, that's the simplest way.
Anything that comes up in a breathing session that might disturb us or disturb our breathing is something that can come up in life and disturb us. And disturb our performance. And so when you breathe through it in a session, when it doesn't stop you in a session, it can't stop you in life.
Agreed. So I love that. Yeah, you had shared that and I was like, yes, exactly. That's perfect. Let's talk a little bit about, so, you know, I've been reading different articles and I'm sure you've seen all this, breathwork being called the new yoga by Vogue magazine recently. And look, we've known that it's getting bigger and bigger. In fact, last year I wrote a blog called Breathwork, WTF, and why everyone should be doing it. And in my research, I looked up that Google Trends was saying breathwork had been Googled last year more times than ever combined over all the years it's been around. So speak to that. How is it growing? Why is it growing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's the next major key skill set that high-performing individuals need to have. And people who work in high-stakes life and death situations, they're trained to breathe. As you know, lives are lost, millions of dollars can be lost, but the average person hasn't been trained to breathe, but now it's waking up in the mainstream. It's like, hey, if it works on the battlefield, it works in the boardroom. If it's important in that arena, it's important in a classroom and in the bedroom. And so, and if it works in those high stress life and death situations, for our everyday problems, it's a no-brainer. So people are literally waking up. It's becoming a mainstream thing. And maybe thanks to science, which is catching up and giving credence and an understanding to why certain yogic practices, Tibetan practices have worked for thousands of years. Now science can explain it. And that kind of gives people permission to do it, you know?
Right.
And I think it's just a matter of exponential growth. It's that 1% law, you know? A certain number of people are doing something, and when it reaches a certain level, almost everybody opens to it. So we're at that point with breathwork now. And it's popping up spontaneously in unrelated fields. And because it's the tool of our day. It's
Yeah.
it's part of our evolutionary process support.
Right.
We're ready. You know, maybe a couple of thousand years ago, you know, you had to sit in a cave for 20 years. You had to do a lot of,
To awaken.
you know, to really earn it. But now it's, and maybe we need it now, and it's becoming more accessible.
I agree with that. Touch on a little bit, you know, speaking of things people are using to wake up and crack themselves open. And you know, this whole ayahuasca and toad and taking these trips to Peru. And, you know, I think I heard you speak about this. I think you feel like I do. I am a person who doesn't, look, I can get to those same places with the breath. So in my opinion, I'm not going to ingest anything in my body that throws me out of control. And also, I can't get off of that ride once I'm on it, once I've ingested something, if I want. Once you're on it, you're on it. But with breath work, you want off the ride, close your mouth, change the breath, right? So a little bit.
It is. It's like it's ayahuasca without the drug.
Yeah.
It's hallucinogenics without the chemicals. It's, yeah. And for some people, you know, those things help because they see that there is something more. Now, how can I find an internal way, a natural way to get to that? The drug alerted me to a possibility, and now how do I find a way to access that? So it's kind of useful, I think, you know, for some people. And I did a lot of LSD, mushrooms, peyote in my early life, and my breathing sessions remind me of those trips, if that's the kind of breathing I do. Right. So, you know, we can use the breath to enter into non-ordinary states of consciousness, to bypass the mind, to do deeper work in the psyche, profound depth work, without the use of chemicals. So that's another reason I think it's getting popular. People realize, wow, you know, I can breathe for 5 minutes and I don't have to take an anti-anxiety pill.
Right.
I don't have to take my asthma medication so much. I'm not taking pain pills as much. Yeah. And as we develop skills and abilities, it's so empowering.
It is.
So I'm glad finally that it's really becoming mainstream.
Yeah. Touching on the whole LSD and acid, so Stan Grof of Holotropic, right? So wasn't that's how he started originally, was because when, I guess, acid or LSD got banned, he couldn't use it with his patients anymore. He discovered the style of breath that he does. Is that pretty much how he got started? And then took people to new states. Yeah.
He did a rebirthing session with Leonard Orr, and he didn't care for Leonard Orr's theories and his model. And, you know, Stan is a serious clinical, academic, medical psychiatrist.
Sure.
And Leonard was kind of too far out, I think. Stan is pretty far out, but anyway, Leonard was too far out. But he realized, whoa, look at this, we can use the breath. And his experiments into old shamanistic practices realized, the breath is a way to induce these same states. So he calls it holotropic breathwork. Yeah. And he uses, you know, provocative music, drumming, primal. He sets people up with images and stories so they're really ready. When they lay down and breathe, you give them a couple of hours and things naturally come up. It's a really beautiful, beautiful process. And I guess that's why we need more facilitators. You know, we need more people who have had the experience, and then they can be a midwife for somebody else.
Right.
So
I love that. I love that. Speak to that for a second, because I'm starting to work with teachers, new teachers. I'm starting to do some teacher trainings. And what would you say to people who are starting in this industry, and, you know, how they can, what's their best way to put their first foot forward as a new teacher, as someone just starting this practice? Obviously get as much experience with bodies in front of you, right, as you can.
And your own sessions. I mean,
and your own personal.
Breathwork is the more sessions we do on ourselves, the better we are at facilitating and coaching others.
Yes.
Our intuition, we sense where they're going. We recognize when they're feeling certain things, and our coaching is really intuitive. So getting a lot of sessions under our own belt.
Right.
And then witnessing sessions, partnering with people.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in forming a good, wide, broad foundation.
Yeah.
So, you survey a bunch of different schools and styles, and you
I agree with that.
pick from that and put together something that really suits you, your
Right.
personality.
Yeah.
And then you're going to attract people because of, who you are and how you use it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that whatever we seem to be working on, we attract people who are ready to work on it.
Right.
So, years ago when I was doing all my own anger stuff, everybody who came to me for a session had anger issues.
Was angry.
I was like, okay, this
That's
is
great.
cool.
Yeah.
And when I had a breakthrough, everybody I was connected with had a breakthrough. So it's really interesting that we attract and we're drawn towards people very wisely as some higher part of ourselves. And breath work gives us that feeling of trusting it more.
Yeah.
And we recognize our intuition versus that voice in our head that's, fused with who we really are.
Right.
Breath work makes that really clear. If I need to make a decision, and I
So
don't,
much clarity.
should I do this? Should I do that? Take a couple of breaths.
Yes.
And focus on this, okay, and take a couple of breaths, and then focus over here, and take a couple of breaths, and the decision is so easily made. The breath, it speaks to us, it tells us. So it's really beautiful when we've learned to use our breath to make that deeper connection to ourselves and to each other.
Right. I always say, the breath work frees space for whatever you need and whatever that is at any different time. It's always something different. As you know, day to day to day, what you get out of breath is completely different day to day.
Yeah.
And so
that spaciousness, I think you hit on like a real gem, a central focus, let's say, during breath. A literal intention and a practice of creating space inside us. Using the breath to sense and create space. And that creation of space allows something to come in. And it's a spaciousness, which is the opposite of contraction and tightness.
Expansion,
Oh, yeah, that's
good.
That's a perfect focus during breathing.
Right.
It's just creating a sense of more and more spaciousness in our body with each breath. Oh, yeah, that alone will take us to some really beautiful insights.
I love it. Yeah. Speak for a second. This is more of a back to some science of it. I know that in the workshop you focused mostly on, and I wonder if this is because this is the style of rebirthing, where it's more chest first and then the exhale. So chest, it's only 2 breaths into the chest and then out the mouth. Whereas in the 3-part that I teach, and I just love because it resonates so much with me, the belly is the first breath. And what do you, because I've always been taught too, even before I got into breath work, that you should be breathing deep into your belly, your diaphragm. And so that goes against everything I've ever learned, but I love that, but it's amazing. So speak to that.
In the mid 70s, when we got really going with rebirthing, the toughest cases were always people who had a lot of experience at yogic breathing.
Right.
They were just our toughest cases.
Yeah.
And what I learned is that when you're breathing in the belly, it's easy to push stuff deep down into you, out of your awareness, without intending to or realizing that's what's happening. Just pushing stuff very deep down.
Which is the opposite of what we want to do.
We want to bring stuff up if we want to heal. Right.
Yes.
And that's why diaphragmatic breathing helps us manage, keeps us grounded, because it does the work of pushing all this stuff out of our way so it's not interfering with our everyday consciousness.
Right.
Breathing in the chest is going to actually invite these things that have the power to distract and disturb us and literally volunteer to bring them up. And so even though in rebirthing, we tell people focus on the chest, and we used to say, because that's where your lungs are. Or you're breathing into your heart to get out of your head,
Right.
But it's not that we're not allowing diaphragmatic breathing to occur. It does by itself. It's just what are you focusing on?
Okay.
And so that focus of the heart, and rather than saying chest, but the heart, and in sometimes even focusing up under the clavicles,
Right.
because there's old memories hidden up there and stored in the tissues. And when you breathe in those spaces, you activate early feelings and emotions of helplessness and what's the other, like vulnerability, and so on. And if we don't breathe in those spaces, those issues never gets processed. So diaphragmatic breathing can actually keep us away from eliminating really important stuff and clearing really important stuff. And that having been said, our default unconscious breathing pattern should resort to natural diaphragmatic breathing. And one of the cool things about that is that when people did a chest-centered session and they released some emotions and old memories and so on, when they were through with the session, the breath settled into their belly like a newborn baby. It's just beautiful. It naturally occurs when you clear away a lot of the emotional stuff that we're unconsciously avoiding.
Right. Now, I understand that what you say about a lot of the feelings being stored in the chest and vulnerability and all of those, from a young age. But I also believe, and just share with me what you think on this, that, I've worked for 24 years in this industry of working with so many different personality types, just in all of the things I've done. I've been a scientist with the human psyche. So I have found that a lot of the women, the female demographic that I work with, because when we store stuff, we're storing sometimes sexual issues and abandonment issues from moms and dads and women especially. I mean, men too. Look, men have their stuff. But working with a lot of females over my career, that a lot of our emotions tend to be stored in the belly, in the stomach, in the hip area. So for me, I have found that, doing that deep, big, full breath into the belly first, and look, both are awesome and always are amazing. But for me, that's why I resonate mostly with that belly breath first, because I feel like it unlocks some of that stored block stuff for women.
Yeah, and
especially.
I think, and in women, the image thing and the flat belly, and also the sexual area.
Yes.
I think when a lot of young women are developing and wow, that wakes up, they're kind of frightened by the reaction to men, being drawn to them, and other women going, who do you think you are so special? So, there's a lot of that stuff. And when you breathe down into the belly, you awaken that. So definitely we need to breathe into the belly.
Yeah.
And the full yogic breath kind of gives us a good insight into this clearing process. All right, the full yogic breath is like filling a glass with water. Fills from the bottom up. So the breath goes down to the perineum and it overflows upward. And many people breathe into their chest without first filling the belly. And so in that case, a two-part breath would make a lot of sense. First breathe in the belly, second half in the chest. Now you're not, you're filling it in a good order.
Right. Understood. That makes so much sense.
I mean, if people have been practicing doing a lot of chest breathing, they need to do diaphragmatic breathing. If they've been doing a lot of diaphragmatic breathing, they need to do some clavicle breathing.
Right.
It's
right.
balanced.
I love that. And I love to, you shared a lot in the workshop about even playing with just the breath, just playing with any, like the tempo, the hold, the exhale, the inhale. Like you did a lot of work with us on the sigh of relief and how important that action is, and what the sigh of relief, like when we take that big inhale and then we let it all go, like what that really means. Like the sigh of relief is important in life, and you spent a lot of time on that. And I thought it was really great, like just how you focused on, playing with even just a 4-7-8 breath or a 4x4 breath, and making it different tempos, different speeds, different holds. So maybe touch on that a little bit. I love that.
So if we just play with, what we could call the parameters, speed, volume, depth, location, the channel, and you just, it's like a musical performer who practices the scales.
Right.
And so you approach the breath like an instrument, and you fast, you breathe slow. You breathe high in your chest, you breathe low in your belly. You breathe through your nose, you breathe through your mouth. You make the inhales long, you make the exhales short. Make the exhales long, make the inhales short. Play with the pauses. And so if you play with all these parameters, you're going to bump into your limits and you're going to stumble over beautiful things that you enjoy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I do encourage you, just play with your breath, just experiment, explore. And what you find interesting or enjoyable, that's your nature kind of prodding you. And what you find challenging or difficult, that's your evolution prompting you.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, it makes it.
We use the sigh of relief because it's something everybody knows how to do. It's an automatic response. But when you do it consciously and you exaggerate it and you use it deliberately in certain moments, your energy to create space, to let go of something, to come to your center, the simple sigh of relief becomes a very powerful therapeutic tool. And so I encourage people to exaggerate the sighs. And yawning. Play with yawning. And when we play, nature's way of learning is play, right? Little tiger cubs roll around and wrestle. They're learning how to hunt. So play with our breath, and we're going to learn how to develop aspects of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. Also, you spoke about the nose, inhaling through the nose or inhaling through the mouth, and that I always try to make sense of which one is really probably the best. I think for relaxing and calming yourself, the inhale into the nose seems to be always the best. I mean, would you kind of agree with that?
A few ways to look at it. I mean, the nose is meant to breathe through. There's hairs,
filtering and all
dust,
that.
mucous membranes, collecting it warms the air if it's too cold, it cools the air if it's too hot. As turbinates that spiral the air. All kind of nitrogen oxide is produced in the sinus. So our unconscious habit should be nose breathing. But if I use the analogy of house cleaning, nose breathing would be fine-tuned cleaning. Mouth breathing is shoveling all the heavy stuff out. So we need to get comfortable with both. And that's one of the things that needs to be healed in many people, is that they can't even breathe through their mouth without activating the fight or flight mechanism, without getting a dry throat, without getting uncomfortable. That means there's some residue, there's some junk that needs to be cleared so that you can breathe through your mouth and be comfortable. So we use mouth breathing for certain specific things. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. It's a really beautiful pattern. And so that's why we need to explore, and we need to be equally comfortable on both ends of the spectrum. And whatever you can produce through your nose in terms of relaxation and subtle energy, you want to be able to do the same thing with your mouth and vice versa. So that's practice, that's skill.
So let's see what else we can talk about. Is there anything that you would want to share today? Like anything new that, like in an interview, you're always like, how come they never ask me this? I have a few more questions, but throw something in there that you've been maybe toying with or thinking on.
I mean, one of the lessons is a little temporary discomfort is a small price to pay for a lifetime of benefits. So if certain breathing exercise or techniques give you a little, I'm not comfortable, I don't know, ding, 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 ding. I mean, that should be, it sounds like something you need to get comfortable with,
Agreed.
And once we have some skills under our belt, we don't have to avoid discomfort because we find a way to navigate it. And then we can actually move into more and more difficult situations with more and more ease and less stress until, you can be in really intense situations and still be centered and clear and loving and relaxed and creative. I mean, I think that's freedom when we can feel good and clear and loving no matter what's happening inside of us. And no matter what's happening around us. To me, that's freedom. So it's a matter of using the breath. We used to call it repatterning the mind-body system.
Right.
Um,
Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about rewiring and refiring, and I love the way he
oh yeah.
teaches. And amen. Yes, yes, yes. Go
So
on.
that's our personal job, and we
Yeah.
can go through it at whatever pace we're ready. But I think it's work that we need to do, and the
Yep.
breath just makes it so navigatable,
Right. No, it's
manageable.
great. It's perfect a way to look at it. And I always say this in my classes too, that, you know, we get this gift of life, right? We get this beautiful gift, and it is a gift, but it's an exchange of a responsibility. In exchange for the life, we also have to be willing to give the gift back to life. And that is to do the work on ourselves, and that is to show up to be in gratitude. We don't get to blame our past and live in our old negative loops and say, oh, I'm a victim. So I believe that rewiring and refiring is our responsibility to the planet. That's how I look at it.
And we're all connected, and so if I can become liberated, a lot of other people are going to be liberated in the process because we're connected. And if I can liberate someone else, I'm going to be liberated because we're connected. So it just makes a lot of spiritual philosophies actual experiences. You know,
No,
we
agreed.
feel through the breath, we feel and experience our connection
Right.
to our source,
Yeah.
to each other, and it's unarguable and unmistakable. And once you have that, it's very hard to be violent. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Certain things become impossible because we can't get away with it anymore.
Right.
How can I hurt you without hurting myself if we're
Right.
connected?
Right.
Now, it's one
Yeah.
thing to have a philosophy about it. It's
Yeah.
another thing to be stuck with a living experience of it that
Right.
makes you walk your talk. You
Right.
know?
That, yes. Also, I believe, you know, that once it's almost like you can't go back once you've discovered the feeling and the openness and the connection that the breath gives you. Like, I don't, you know, in my past, I have had a struggle with, you know, my background is, you know, I've struggled with depression, low-grade depression, because it's in my family and it's something I struggled with. But since discovering the breath, it's like now I always have a tool. There is never an excuse to go back to that place because the tool is right under my nose to pull me right out.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't get to wallow in, oh, but I'm always this way, or oh, this is my default, or you don't get that excuse anymore once you've woken up. So, yeah.
If you're willing to give up those stories, that's another thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like breathing is very healing if you're willing to feel.
Yeah.
But if
Right.
you're huffing and puffing and blocking your feelings, you're just creating a whole lot of chaos.
Right.
And so the same thing for that. If you're willing to let go of your stories, if you're really serious about being 100% responsible for your experience, then you're going to be drawn to breath work.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
if not, you know, you'll be a tire kicker. You're
Yeah.
going to move on to something else. So
Yeah.
it's very, there's a certain integrity in it.
Yes. So much so. Authenticity would be another word that comes to mind.
Right.
You can't be inauthentic and want to do this breath work and practice it regularly, I believe. You know, maybe some people can have some trickery around it, but I personally believe that once you discover it, you're your most authentic self from there forward.
And there is no going back. Once you get a taste,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
you want to go forward. And what's the next possible? What else can I do? What's the next level? Yeah.
For me, it's like it just makes me want to touch the planet bigger and more and deeper. And I can't scream it from the rooftops enough. It's like if I could just stand on one rooftop and touch the whole planet, I would. And so I know you get that. But it's like I can't get it out fast enough. I just can't touch enough people fast enough. So for me, that's my struggle right now, is how to get the message out. But talk to me a bit, speaking of the message, where do you think breathwork will be in the next 10 years if we were to look at what we picture for it, or what you think?
You know, with the combination of technology, sensors, wearable stuff, real-time monitoring of physiological, chemical, brain waves, it's accelerating everything. So, I mean, in 10 years, all of the stuff that we used to hear about the great yogis and masters and saints and the great warriors of ancient times, average people are going to be displaying those abilities.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And because they're human abilities. And and rare people tap them in the past.
Right.
And now thanks to the breath, and merge that with real-time monitoring of real physiological factors. And wow, that we go exponential real quick. So
Have you followed, or obviously Bulletproof and Dave Asprey, right? Do you know what he's doing with the light sensors that people are wearing? Have you heard about that?
yeah,
Or what are your thoughts on that with the breath?
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's virtual reality or something. I'm not quite familiar.
And gong baths and breathing with
sound baths.
vibrations and toning and like I try to be a purist.
Right.
Because, if you throw 5 things at something and it works, now you got to figure out which one
thing
of those
was the
things
one.
really was it. Yeah.
Right.
So I deliberately don't eat right. I don't exercise. So when I'm 105 and I'm thriving, I'll be able to say, you know what? It's just because of the breath, because I didn't do anything else right.
You're so funny. You're hilarious. I love that. What do you say about, or do you have your own daily breath routine, or how do you start your mornings? Like you just said, you don't do anything right, so maybe you don't even have a morning routine. What do you do around?
I'm in a constant conscious relationship with my breath.
Yeah.
And so when I wake up in the morning, this is the first place my attention goes. And wow, look at that! I'm awake again. And look at this beautiful breath, feels so good. And I play with it. Yeah. Is it easy to take in a big breath? Is it easy to breathe fast? Is my breath trying to tell me anything? Am I holding back something on the exhale? Am I in a hurry to take something in? So just by sensing my breathing in the morning, I get a sense of how I am, what's happening. So I connect to my breath early. And I turn to my breath constantly. Yeah. When I'm listening, I'm breathing in. Right. When I'm looking at something, I'm not just seeing it, I'm consciously breathing in. Right. So it's so integrated into my way of being now that I don't have a lot of rituals anymore.
Yeah, you don't probably need it.
And it's become second nature, in a way. Yeah. For example, I would practice if I felt tense. I mean, this is going way back to the early 70s when I was in the military. I'm getting a little anxious. I'm in a high stress thing. I'm starting to get distracted by my own anxiety or doubt or whatever. And so I would breathe consciously. Then that just became kind of second nature after a while. Right. So now, if tension rises in my body and I'm not even aware of it, it stimulates my breathing. And my breathing wakes me up. So it's like, wow, look at that. My breath just came in out of nowhere. It washed away that layer of tension that I wasn't even conscious of yet. So I feel it working for me. And it's the same thing as if my bliss gets dented. Out of nowhere, a breath will come and lift me right back up because I've done it on purpose so many times. Yeah. I've actually trained my system.
It's automatic for you. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to kind of wrap pretty quickly. I'm so sad, but I could just talk with you forever. Do you want to share anything about, I know that you're doing this breath fest. Remind me what it's called, coming up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit or no? Do you want to share that? And because I'm going to jump on a call with you guys next week to discuss some of that, but talk a little bit what that's about. It's exciting.
Yeah, well, there's been a conference called the Global Inspiration Conference, sponsored by the IBF, International Breathwork Foundation. We just had the 25th annual conference, and it was in Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
About 250 people, but I always feel it's kind of an incestuous crowd, where we're preaching to the choir. We're all already all lovers and
jacked up about it and pumped up about it. Yeah.
And it happens every summer. It's in a different country every year. Next year it'll be in Sweden. But I realized that in February there was never anything happening in the breathing world.
Right.
And I've been living down in Los Cabos now for 12 years.
Lucky
and there's a lot of snowbirds come down here. And so I thought, and I started a personal retreat for myself. We have about 30 acres of land, organic gardens, orchards. And it's where I come to reboot, recharge, and renew.
Sign me up. Coming.
And what happened is my personal retreat just got bigger and bigger, and more people came. And last year we really outgrew ourselves. So we said, okay, this is becoming some kind of a public festival. Let's just make it official. It's no longer Dan's private retreat.
I love it.
Official. And so, yeah, we're planning. Basically, we want Los Cabos to be the place to be in February.
Okay.
If you have any interest in breathing for any reason,
Yeah.
mingle with other people from different schools and styles, and network, interface, and present and confer, and
Love it.
and take a vacation in Cabo, right? That's kind of, and usually, you know, at these conferences, people are like, they're really on, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, let's do a little more relaxed thing, because so much creativity comes out of, you know, just being in kind of a vacation mode in a way, but focused, you know? So that's what we're doing. It's going to be February 2020.
Great.
And the website will be up in another week or so. And
exciting.
And we're gathering names and who's coming and what'll be happening and where are some of the venues that are hosting things and where do you stay, and we're just going to make it easy for people to come to Cabo if you're interested in breathing.
Great.
And some of the biggest names in breathwork have already committed. And over the next 3 years, we want to ramp this up to be like the premier general breathing gathering in the world.
Wow, exciting.
So that's kind of like the mission. The first one in 2020, the theme is vision, focus, clarity, and anyone participating is actually a co-creator. So we're going to see what we create, and
that's great.
Years well it develops. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we're inviting people, plan a Cabo vacation in February.
Yep.
And while you're here, there'll be a whole lot of other people interested in breathing, offering things, having meetings and conferences and panels, presentations and talks, and you can pick and choose. Or whatever. So yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it should be.
It's amazing.
And we're forming, you mentioned we're having our first creators call next Thursday.
Yeah. If anyone's maybe interested, can they reach out to you if they want to be on that call or be a part of that? Or
send them the Zoom link. That's how we have a list of about 100 people so far who said they were interested and they are intending on participating in some way.
Yeah.
So we're just going to start creating.
That's great. I love it. Yeah. And then, so finally, how can anyone get in touch with you? What's the next on the map for you? Where are you headed? You're all over the world all the time. What's next for you?
Well, my team in my office trying to get me in the habit of mentioning Instagram.
Okay, good. Talk about it. Where can we find you?
Dan Brulé, at Dan Brulé Official.
Okay, Dan Brulé Official.
Official is my Instagram.
Got it.
And breathmastery.com
is your website.
I predate Google. So breathmastery.com has been around for 20-something years. You know?
Wow.
And I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
Dan Brulé Breath Mastery is on Facebook.
Great.
And
do you have anything coming up? Do you have a retreat or a workshop or a teacher training? What do you got coming up?
I've been in 9 countries so far this year, and I have about 9 more to go.
Okay.
In the U.S., I'll be in New York, August 10th, and then we're doing a week in Toronto, August 14th and 20th.
Great.
And otherwise, I'm in Romania, I'm in Portugal, I'm in South Africa, I'm in Lithuania, Estonia, Russia.
That doesn't sound very lazy that doesn't sound lazy to me, Dan. At all.
I have learned to relax in motion.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Because life is a river, and once in a while, you want to paddle a little bit. But most of the time, we're being called and pulled, and so I'm a road warrior, and I've gotten very comfortable with it.
You're a breath warrior too.
And I do my annual retreat in February, which I mentioned, which has become a festival, but we still do a very private, limited to 15 people, 21 days.
Is that full yet, or can people still join for 2020?
Full, yes.
Okay.
We're half full on that. Good. Really cool people.
Awesome.
And they get me for 21 days, basically.
Wow.
And they get each other because everybody brings real skills.
Yeah.
And it's a serious commitment, 21 days.
It's a lot of days,
We
yeah.
mix a lot of play and enjoy and rest and stuff in between, but
That's great.
it's deep work. It's for practitioners, but it's for anybody who wants a real reboot in their life, or take your practice to the next level, or
It's great.
something like it. And it's an application.
Okay.
Last year we had 50 applicants. We took
Okay.
18 or 19. This year, we're only going to take 15.
Okay.
And that happens at our place in Mexico every February. So that's and the information on that is on my website.
On the website. Okay, perfect.
Very limited. It's application. We have to interview each person because we're being selective.
No, that's great. I love it.
Anastasia, who's my partner who manages, we're pretty man heavy so far.
Yeah.
So
you need some women.
We're offering incentives to women.
Okay. Good to know.
Change in 2 weeks, we might have a flood of women. We'll be looking to balance.
Yeah, you never know after this interview.
Oh, yeah, we'll never know. And I'm a big believer in, if people feel drawn, they're supposed to be there. I'm not going to get in the way,
Right. I love it. I love it. Dan, I love speaking with you. We're going to have to do this again because I could talk to you forever.
I love it.
Ever. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for your time. We're going to collaborate on some more stuff, so I'm not going to say goodbye to you.
No.
But you're awesome. I appreciate your energy so much. So much. Thank you, Dan. Have a wonderful rest of your day, sweetheart.
You too.
Okay.
And everyone.
Signing. Okay. Bye-bye, sweetheart.